My YouTube analytics now show that only about 6% of you who watch my videos are subscribed to this channel. Come on guys, let's go, press the subscribe button and enjoy this video on Pokémon Legends Arceus. Let's get straight into it. So this is my third video out of 3, analysing the last 3 major Pokémon releases before Scarlet and Violet come out on Friday. This video is on Pokémon Legends Arceus, and in many ways, this is my favourite out of the 3 games by a long way. Let's go over as to why. So some people will say that Legends Arceus was like Pokemon's take on Breath of the Wild, and no, that's wrong. It's actually its take on Monster Hunter, because Pokémon Legends Arceus has not got one cohesive open world, and I think that actually comes greatly to its advantage. Let me just explain how the world works in Legends Arceus and why it's different to Breath of the Wild. So, what Pokémon Legends Arceus' open world is it's split into several different sections that are all completely different, with completely different Pokémon. They've got completely different geography, some have different seasons because they're higher up in the mountains, and some are more ocean-filled levels, and some are fields. You know, they're very, very different, but they're all massive spaces that will take you hours to explore, should you want to. Breath of the Wild's world is one cohesive world, and Pokémon Legends Arceus isn't like that. I actually think that it works to its advantage, because the world of Pokémon Legends Arceus isn't one filled with artifacts and monuments. It's not something that you'd be particularly interested to explore extensively, apart from for the Pokémon. And that's the part of this game that really lets the game being split into sections work for its advantage, because it gives the game the opportunity to split up all the Pokémon into different sections. So it's always worth exploring a new space, because you never know what Pokémon you're going to find there, and catching Pokémon, that's actually the best part. But before I get there, I just quickly got to say, I don't think it would be fair to me to criticise Sword and Shield's graphics if I didn't criticise Legends Arceus' very simplistic shading. So Pokémon Legends Arceus is a bad looking game. Like, it's just not good. But unlike Sword and Shield, this is a much more ambitious game that is a lot more fun to play as a general gameplay style. That's controversial, I know, but I think that it's much more engaging in a way that it really sucks you into the world in a way that Sword and Shield doesn't. So it can sort of get away with the graphics not being quite up to par, but honestly, look at the water in these games. It's bad. Don't go into this game expecting a graphical powerhouse, because you won't get it. It looks really basic, but it does the job, because it contains and allows you to experience the best part of this game, and that's the gameplay. Let's talk about it. So the gameplay of Pokémon Legends Arceus is actually very, very different to the gameplay of any Pokémon games before it, because this really does feel like more of a Monster Hunter type game. So for example, all the Pokemon, they roam, and you don't have to enter any loading screens to battle them, catch them, whatever. You can literally just walk up to a Pokemon, get out your Pokeball, throw it at them, and it catches them, all without a single loading screen. You've also got different types of Pokeballs, as is a standard in Pokemon games, but here it feels more significant, because if you don't catch a Pokemon, there can actually be consequences, as you'll probably see at some point in this video. When I tried to catch a Tornadus, which is a little bit of a gameplay spoiler for the later gameplay, but not really. So I tried to catch a Tornadus and I didn't go in prepared. I was trying to train up my Cyndaquil. I had about 3 Pokemon that were above level 40, and I literally got absolutely battered by not just the Tornadus, but I also got attacked by 2 Glalie as well, one of which was an alpha. And honestly, the best thing about this game is it's hard. Like, sometimes it is actually difficult, and honestly, after having to go through the easiness of every Pokemon game since Gen 6, apart from the odd battle in Gen 7, it's so refreshing. It's fantastic. Like, the ending battle, which I won't spoil, in Legends Arceus, is so difficult. It took me hours to complete it, because I actually had to strategize and work out what the best Pokemon were to take into the battle, and I had to train up different Pokemon, like a whole other team, because my team wasn't good enough. Like, When was the last time that happened in a Pokemon game? I got stuck on a level. This is not an easy game, not even in the slightest. And even catching Pokemon is not easy, because I've had some times where I've been chased by an alpha Pokemon, which, by the way, if you haven't played the game, an alpha Pokemon is like a giant, much more powerful, much more aggressive version of a normal Pokemon, which starts spawning randomly after you defeated the first boss. And these things are nightmarishly difficult to fight. Like, they're impossible to calm down. You have to basically defeat them. They're harder to catch than normal Pokemon, and they're huge. They're generally really high level. They'll chase you. You know, there is a genuine risk that if you're not paying attention, a Pokemon will hit you, and it'll hit your person, and you'll faint. Like, there's actual consequences in this game if you're not careful. And that's so refreshing. It's so nice to see a Pokemon game that actually challenges you. Let's have a little chat about the alpha Pokemon and the boss battles quickly, before I get on to how you get around this massive world. Alpha Pokemon. They are awesome. I love this feature. I think it's generally so interesting. So basically what happens is that there's a few alpha Pokemon in certain places that are fixed. But once you defeat the first boss, they start spawning at random. There's a very low percentage of them spawning, but when they do, you'll know about it. Because they've got massive glowing red eyes, they're way bigger than the standard Pokemon, and they're much more aggressive. So it's actually a challenge to catch them. And actually, one of my favourite features of this game was when I just went around trying to catch alphas. And, you know, that gave me hours of entertainment. I loved it. I gotta be honest, this is a game that I'll still come back to just to go and catch a few Pokemon, because I just find it so satisfying. Like, you can try really hard to sneak around the Pokemon to try and throw it into their backs, and then you get like an extra, you get an extra percentage of catching them, and it also makes a really satisfying sound. And you go to battle like more aggressive Pokemon to catch them, and you can run around the battles in the game now. Like, you don't have to stay still, you're not fixed, you can just run around the battle and you can see it all play out from whatever angle you want. And there's a whole new move style, and there's a whole new style of how timing works in the game and how speed works, and it's all so interesting and it all works so well. Because this is not a game about battling, this is a game about catching. So it actually says quite a lot to me that they've even managed to completely revamp the battle system for it to seem even more. There's an extra strategic element to it as well, because you're not just battling one person after the next, one Pokemon after the next. Like, you can change the whole order of battle and using strong style and agile style moves, and it's great. It's really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And I gotta be honest, the boss battles I also really enjoyed. So this is where the proper Monster Hunter style of battle comes in. Basically, you'll be fighting some massive Pokemon which you have to repeatedly throw these lures into over and over again so that it calms down enough for you to battle it and catch it. And you're playing as your trainer, and if you get hit, you will essentially, well, air quotes, die. Obviously it's not actually dying, you sort of just fall over and the screen goes black, but still, it's like death in a Pokemon game. Like, when has this ever happened before? And then once you finally throw enough lures into the Pokemon, you then got to catch it. And these Pokemon are tough, and they're normally a higher level than you as well. That's another thing about this game that I couldn't believe when I got in. You will actively encounter Pokemon, wild Pokemon, that are 20 to 30 levels above you. That's a real sense of difficulty to the game, and I love that. Let's talk about the travel, how you get around the world, and the story. Travelling around the world in Pokémon Legends Arceus is actually really fun. So as you go, you'll unlock different kinds of Pokemon that you can ride on. So you've got one Pokemon which you can ride on, like a horse for example. There's another Pokemon that you can swim on. There's another one you can fly with. It's like a much more advanced version of the rideable Pokemon in Generation 7, and it's fantastic. It makes travelling the world so much more interesting, because flying around a world like this makes the whole muteness of the graphical style much less notable, because you're just flying around, catching Pokemon, having a good time. You're not really concentrating on the graphics when the gameplay is so good. The story, however, that's what really makes this game fantastic. So the story of this game actually sucked me in more than any story of any Pokemon game ever has before. I was invested in the story. And not only is there a story that has an actual middle end and conclusion that makes sense, but there's also a post-game that expands on that story. And that post-game is, I'm still doing it because I still haven't completed, well, I still haven't caught every single Pokemon in the game because I can't find them. And I'm trying, but you know, there's a lot of work to do and I'm really enjoying doing it as well. So every like couple months or so, I'll pop into this game and I'll play it for a couple of hours, catching a few Pokemon, and then I'll log in the week after and just have a little, because one thing about this game that's really nice is it's a very chilled out experience if you're just catching the basic Pokemon. All the music is very calming and relaxing, it's all flute based and nice little, it's basically like Breath of the Wild but with a flute. That's what I'd say anyway. And it's very, especially when it's a night in the game, like you look up and there's all these stars and you just walk in, like it can be a very pretty game when it wants to be, just the graphical style holds it back. Let's talk about why I think this game is a strong glimpse into the future of Pokemon and why it makes me more excited for that future. So we've all seen the trailers of Scarlet and Violet. We know that these games are going to be open world, more classically inspired games that have sort of brought together the advancements of both Legends Arceus and Sword and Shield. I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how much influence they take from Pokemon Legends Arceus, because if there's any game they should be taking influence from, it's that. Not graphically, but in every other way, yes. Because these games were the best time I've had with a Pokemon game since probably Gen 5, and I've played every single game since, and not a single one of them has hit as much of a chord with me as this one did. It actually felt like a game for more mature Pokemon fans. Not like for them, but it felt like a game that could be built around them as well. Because I think that the new Pokemon games are too easy, and they are too hand-holdy, but this game is special. And I think that it's a really strong indication that the Pokemon Company are actually listening to people when it comes to things like difficulty. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they've taken those lessons and learned from them when we see Scarlet and Violet on Friday. I'm actually going to be streaming that game, live on Twitch, and maybe on YouTube as well. So I'll drop a post and a short when I'm going live, Friday night, ready for the new release of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I'll be posting videos of my live gaming sessions as well, so if you didn't catch a stream, you won't be missing out on anything. I'll see you guys there. Thanks for watching, take care, and have a good day.
So much for watching my video. If you enjoyed this little 3-part series, please let me know in the comments below or by leaving a like. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon for my Wars with 2 impressions, and then on Friday, live on Twitch for my Pokemon Scarlet and Violet playthrough. I'll see you guys there. Cheers guys, have a good one.